during this time I was still I never did designing on my own, but I was always fascinated by designing. So I would write my idea and go and sit with a designer. Like, आपने ये कैसे किया? अच्छा ये कैसे किया? मुझे बताओ ना. And the designer would be like, हमें अपना काम करने दे, तुमने कर दिया है, ठीक है.
Hey Vipul, how are you doing?
Hey Sanjay, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So glad to have you on the podcast, and I would like to welcome you first because, I wanted to have a conversation with a person who is into motion and all interesting things, NFTs, the trend, and a lot of things that are trending right now. And I wanted to have a discussion with somebody who can tell the audience, my listeners, my podcast listeners, and also myself, because I want to educate myself. So I'm very curious about those things, and I was just going through, I've been following your work on Instagram for quite some time, and I think I think I've heard you speak in one of the Clubhouse sessions, I think.
Clubhouse, right.
So that's when I got connected.
True, yeah, exactly. I think that was last July when Clubhouse was like, all our NFTs was happening a lot on Clubhouse, and that's exactly when you said like I got to know about you too, and like we spoke a bit about it here and there, but like finally we are doing this, so it's good to see you.
I know, right? This is the first time I'm seeing you too, so welcome to the podcast, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So now, when I was looking at your work all the while, I've been following you for a while. So, interesting things that I would definitely want to talk about. But before that, I want to just take a little step back and look at your academic journey and how you actually came to be an NFT featured artist, So, I want to go back
I'm
and
lucky
see.
enough to be featured. I mean, I was actually quite lucky to be featured. Like, there's so many brilliant artists that like I felt like should have deserved to be there too. But but it's been quite a long journey. Like if we talk about academics, so during school I was never into arts. I would always pick music and sports over art because I could not draw.
Interesting.
Although there's this crazy memories, like very vivid memories, that when I was first or second grade, I remember I used to draw Mickey Mouse and Donald Trump, Donald Duck and all. And but these are like vivid memories. Like I think I was not good enough that I never pursued. And there's this only one art memory that I have from an art class. That is when there are watercolors, right? You're taught to use watercolors, and I think you have to paint them in one single direction. And I painted just like that haphazardly, and my teacher scolded me. And that is my last art class memory. I don't remember anything ever taking an art class after that. But the funny thing is, I was into football. So even during classes, I would doodle behind my notebooks, and I would doodle football jerseys, football boots. For graduation, I went into mass media, BGMC from IP University. Even then, designing was part of the curriculum, but I stayed away from it. I felt like I cannot draw. That is not what I want to do. I cannot do it. But I was really into photography. I used to love taking photos, and I think that kind of came to me from my father. My father used to take photos. My father still loves to take photographs.
Interesting.
So then my agenda was, okay, what to do next in my life. I used to love photography. I used to love advertisements. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Mumbai. I'm going to go to Xavier's, and I'll learn about advertising, and I'll become an video producer. I'll go and shoot ads.
Okay.
I went to Mumbai, I got qualified for the college, I was lucky enough to be there. I enjoyed my time, but unfortunately during the course, I broke a ligament in my right knee. I used to play football, so I had a major injury. So the initial plan was to stay back in Mumbai, get into production and all that, and because of the injury, everything just went out of the window. Because the recovery process is a year long, and then so I had to come back to Delhi. And of course, in production, you have to be always on your toes. You have to keep running around. So suddenly, all of that option just went out of the window. So I came back. I was like, "Ab kya karna hai?" ठीक है, सारे plans तो अजीब से हो गए.
Right.
And so then I just took whatever job that was offered to me. I was like, I started writing I worked as a content writer for a time. Then I worked as a copywriter with an ad agency. And even so, during this time, I was still I never did designing on my own, but I was always fascinated by designing. So I would write my idea and go and sit with a designer. I was like, आपने ये कैसे किया? अच्छा ये कैसे किया? मुझे बताओ ना. And the designer would be like, हमें अपना काम करने दे, तुमने कर लिया है, ठीक है? And but by this time I realized that writing is not something that I'm passionate about, and somehow designing is okay while looking at other people. And then I left it. I left my job at 25. Then I was like, okay, what to do next? And I was still not sure that I want to be a designer. Okay, even at this point, I love designing, but I don't want to be a designer. I tried my hand at photography. I did a lot of shoots for exposure, as they say. I did a lot of free shoots, and it wasn't paying the bill. Then my brother suggested me that why don't you do an internship with a YouTube channel? Okay, so there's a channel called The Surfing Violinist, and it was basically about an American family living in India back then. And so I spoke to the guy, I met the guy, I said I want to learn to edit videos and I love to travel. He said you can come on board and we might not be able to pay you a lot, but I'll teach you. So I was like, cool, I just want to learn.
Which year was this?
This is, 2015 mid, I left my job. And then I started interning. By the end of 2015, I started interning with him. During this internship, my dad suggested, you're already learning certain softwares from him. Why don't you learn them as well from a place like Mac? Learn a few more softwares, build a proper portfolio. And the funny thing is, when I was sitting in that reception area at Mac, I had spoken to them that I want to learn a few software. I saw a video making of Avengers. And that was a whole CGI. And I was like, I want to do this. That was my first interaction with the 3D world. And so I spoke to them. I said, whatever the fees and all the requirements were there, got done, and I started studying 3D. That is back in 2016 start. That course took around 1.5 years or probably more. So by the end of 2017, I was out of that course. I completed the course. The software that I learned over there was 3ds Max. And it's a very good 3D software especially for if somebody wants to get into architecture. So once I got out, then I got an offer from a studio called Dream Jar Studios. And it's a studio, it's a small setup, but it's a very fantastic studio, especially if somebody wants to start their design career at. It's based in Rohini. Then I worked with them for 1.5 years. It was a brilliant experience. But then again, you reach a saturation point at certain places, right? Over there, I was only doing static designing for them. And still now, I still had not ventured into the motion designing. And during this time, motion designing was coming up, and you see the Instagram videos, you're like, yaar, I want to learn this. Mujhe bhi banana hai ye. Okay, that creative kida ki kaise kiya ye. So by end of 2019, by the mid of 2019, around May, I took a break from Dream Jar Studio and I started studying Cinema 4D on my own. I mean, through an online course.
Interesting.
That was my step from 3D designing as a static designer into motion designing. So I learned it within a span of 2 months, and then I applied at a studio called Animal. I think pretty sure you must have heard of them too. And then the Animal adventure began, and that was a big thing for me because I really wanted to get into Animal. Animal is one of the top with design studios in Delhi in India actually. And then motion designing began. And that was my design journey from coming from, non-design background to finally becoming a designer at a big studio. And then once that ended, then the NFT journey began.
Quite interesting. And one thing I want to pick up on what you've just mentioned is that you were very curious at your workplace when you were, writing things for your content writer job, and you were continuously asking your fellow
designers,
the design team. So I think that is a very important aspect of getting to know what you want to do. Curiosity is very important, and if I relate to myself also, because I'm a very curious person. If I want to know, I just want to know, मतलब चाहिए मुझे पता करना है क्या है क्या वो, you know,
Right.
I want to do it.
True,
So,
true. I mean, it's not necessary that you'll execute it or you'll
Exactly.
follow that thing, but it's like, how did you do it? Just tell me that thing. That kida is always there.
yeah.
True.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing to note here, and most of the creative folks usually have that in them, and that
True.
is, I think, something that, you know, takes you a long distance, because you're so curious about
Right.
things, and I think that's how you also got into motion. You saw something and you wanted to know how to do it, and you
Exactly.
taught yourself
Right.
to do that.
True.
So very interesting.
And I think in our field is like that, you know, it's always evolving. Designing keeps changing. Every year there is a new trend, and you have to like be on your toes. It's like you follow kya ho raha and everything, and you want to be ahead of everyone, so you need to know everything that's happening out there.
Yeah. So this again underlines a very important fact of, you know, knowing what trends are going in the industry. It's
Absolutely.
right. So how do you keep yourself up to date with the trends?
So of course one of them is like Instagram. Like I follow a lot of designers through Instagram. Then I read a few websites that like keep every now and then come up like going to be the new next trending designs of this year, or you know what is the new color palette, or what is the new kind of color shading that is in demand. But at the end of the day also you want to make sure you don't lose from what is your originality. You know what you already do. You want to keep your aesthetics over there, that it's people still resemble to what you're doing, while integrating little bit of new changes into your designs. Like for example, I'll tell you like before NFT, when I was working with the animal and all, my character designs was a bit different. The clothing and all was different, was not so detailed. But when I started seeing new detailed designing, so I had picked up another software called Marvelous Designer. I learned it. That is very good for clothing. So I wanted that thing to be integrated within my 3D design. So now if you compare my original 3D characters to the 3D characters I do now, have a little bit of that detailing which was missing previously. So again, like that comes, you have to like, don't want to lose what your art is about, but you still want to add to it like minute changes.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting way of approach. You're not losing your originality, but you're at least, you're also, taking those trends in and, absorbing them and coming up with something new. So that's really cool. So,
I think even as a viewer, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Go ahead.
I think even I always feel like if I were a viewer, like if I'm my own audience, like if I see the same thing again and again, it kind of gets boring, Like so you need you need to bring that little twist in your designs. It's like, "Arey, aaj kuch naya banaya hai isne."
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
So let me ask you this. So you mentioned about now we are drifting towards social media here. So a little bit about social media. So how do you manage that? So do you create stuff for social media exclusively, or do you put out work that you get to work on projects or stuff like that? How do you do that? So how do you manage that?
So like again during my animal phase, because most of the times like half of like the whole week would go into your office work, and then you are just left with your weekend. That time I was hardly active on Instagram or any social media. I would like post within 2 months or 3 months. So I kind of felt like, and then like I think you also like, especially for me at that time, I was not so much into building my own brand. I was like, I'm doing a job, it's more than enough for me. Once in a while I'll put it on Instagram to say ki main hoon.
Right. Right.
And once I took a break from the job side, then I started creating certain bit of content for the social media, like especially during when COVID happened, second wave and everything was going on. I like started creating content based on that was requirement. And I kind of during the NFT journey, I have kind of realized that social media presence in today's world of marketing is very important. To have a brand identity, to be consistent in your in being out there. Although like with NFTs now I create for NFTs, that stuff goes on social media, but there was a phase in between where I was creating for social media.
So that did play an important role in reaching where you are now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think like again, like for being consistent enough, being aware, again, like how algorithm works,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
like
yeah,
step away for a bit, you kind of like like just you step away for altogether.
yeah,
So yeah, so that kind of did help me. It also helps you understanding how to talk to people, to
yeah,
write content, not just your design, but how you engage when it comes to stories, when it comes to small stuff like polls.
yeah,
I'm not a fan of reels, but in between I had to create them because
yeah,
that is the need of the hour. So you have to,
yeah.
like I said, you have to keep understanding the trend as well.
Right. Interesting. And now I want to bring up a very important discussion here. The word that we've mentioned so many times now, NFTs, right? NFTs. Now,
Right.
I want to break it down, and since you have been making NFTs and you've started earning from NFTs, right? If I have to say, and then you've got featured for making those artworks, I want to break it down to the basic level possible, because there are many people who still want to understand what NFTs are. Although it's been going on for a while now and a lot of people do know,
Right.
but then there are also people who want to venture out into NFTs and want to understand everything about them. So, what is an NFT, if we have to say? How would you
Right.
go about it?
See, again, like I think that I the way I put it, especially for artists' point of view, is rather than going in the technical way.
Yeah.
It's basically an online market for what you create, right? Instead, so basically, in a layman's term, if I tell you, like I'm talking about just as an individual artist, I'm not talking the whole big NFT world, but
Right.
for an artist, if I want to tell you something, it's like you're going to sell your work online. Instead of putting it for free on Instagram, you're now going to get money out of it. That is, of course, if like it gets sold then. And the only difference is like you would be dealing in crypto. Right, so that is going to be like you'll be earning in crypto, you'll be like investing in crypto. The better part is like always, so you, and the idea is like your identity as a creator would never be lost. Even 10 years down the line, suppose if you buy my piece and then you sell it to somebody and then it will get sold again to somebody else. In real world, what it might happen is, suppose you buy a physical piece from me and you sell it to somebody else. Third person might not know that I am the creator. Right. But in the NFT space, so if I'm going to buy an NFT, it would be clearly mentioned over there that this has been transferred from this person then to this person, and this guy is the creator. So your value as a creator would always be visible and it would always stay there. And another beautiful part is that you'll always get the royalties out of it. So the n number of times it gets sold, the n number of times you'll get the royalty percentage out of every sale.
Right.
So yeah, so in short, it's basically a digital way to sell your artwork, and it's a very transparent way.
So very simple understanding. Like it's a very, thank you for breaking it down to such a level, and want to understand about the process of minting and all of that also. So you make an artwork. Let's say you created something, some 3D, 3D art
Right.
piece, or could be moving elements or stationery or whatever it is.
True.
So what is the process after that?
So first of all, like NFT doesn't really need to be just a design or 3D or 2D. It can be a simple element like a poem. You put a poem on a piece of paper, you mint it. Even like a lot of physical artworks, artists scan their work and then they upload it as an NFT. It can be music, it can be a photograph. Right now, the photography industry is like booming a lot in NFT.
Oh yes.
Exactly. It's going crazy.
I mean,
so
Gary Vee predicted it. Yeah, so it has to go.
It is. Of course. And so back to your question. So once I so it's like once I minted. Once I created. So it's like how you log in on Instagram, you upload it. It's pretty much the same happening on a crypto related website. Okay. Now like there are certain charges that you have to pay. But then that again becomes subjective to where you are uploading it. you know. So in ideal way, so basically so there'll be a little bit of cost involved in your uploading that artwork. Once that artwork is uploaded, then you kind of, you know, market it on Twitter or Instagram, and it's there. It's going to stay there for forever. And then, like, once you market it, then people who are interested in buying it can go and buy your piece from that website.
Okay, cool. So now you've mentioned that there are different websites. So what platforms are available for people?
So as of right now, like, a couple of new platforms are anyway coming up, but one of the apex platform that is Foundation. Then there's a platform called Opensea. Then there's an Indian platform called WazirX. There are several other Indian platforms coming up, but as of right now in the Indian market, WazirX remains the apex platform. There's another platform called non-fungible. So every platform has its pros and cons, you know, cons, like everything has it. Like Foundation, like I said, is apex platform, so the cost of investment is going to be higher, and the cost of reward is also going to be higher, you know, that way, because the quality of work is over there is very good. The quality of collectors, people are going to bid on it. But like, if somebody wants to start with NFTs, I would suggest two platforms, Opensea and WazirX. WazirX being the Indian platform, the cost of investment is minimal. But again, so as last time I got on WazirX was not invite based, application based. So you have to send an application, you get shortlisted, then you get to be picked. Most like I'm not exactly sure if they follow the same criteria right now, but that is when they used to follow. Opensea is a universal platform. You do not need any invite. You do not need any application. You can join it on any given day at any given time. Foundation is an invitation-based platform. So somebody who's already on the platform will only be able to send you an invite to join the platform. Then there's a non-origin platform. It's now gaining a lot of popularity, especially like it has been here for a while, but recent months has seen a lot of popularity. For them over there, it's again an application-based platform, but over there you cannot send it any time. They open the application for a certain amount of period. During that time, you have to apply, and like last time they saw like crazy amount of applications. So yeah, that is another platform. Then there are several other platforms, of course.
Okay. Also, about the minting fee that we also mentioned, can you give us a little idea about how much is it exactly, approximately?
Right. So again, that also changes per day, per week. Okay, that is the funny part. But like I said, like if you want to begin with NFTs, WazirX and Opensea are. So WazirX used to cost like around $1 per mint. So WazirX is like it's very good. Like if you want to start small, it's a place to be at. Okay. Opensea. Okay, so Opensea has two kind of formats. Okay, you can either upload your work for bidding, or you can upload your work for a fixed price. So to become a creator, there's going to be a one-time investment. The first time you join the platform as a creator, that is so when I joined, that was like around $100. Recently, it has come down to $30. So even right now, it's a good time to be on OpenSea. So that is your one-time investment. Now, when you're minting on OpenSea, if you're selling your piece for a fixed price, this is for 100, like for example 100 rupees ka 100 mein le jao, no bar, no bidding system and all. You won't have to pay a penny then. It's like you won't have to pay the gas fee. Then the collector has to pay the gas fee. However, if you put it for a bidding system, like how bidding system works, this is the minimum price, then however it goes for. In that case, to accept the bid, then you'll have to pay the gas fee. So again, like gas fees, like I said, like within a few months, it has come down a lot. I think recently for accepting or something is like around $40-50 on OpenSea. But again, for an artist who's starting, then I think it's a very safe area to go ahead with a fixed price. Build a market, start selling few pieces. Then you start shifting with the bid system. When like that, have a couple of collectors, that there's going to be a bid war. And Foundation is again, like I said, an Apex platform, so your cost of like minting every fee is a bit higher. So basically, what this gas fees is basically the amount of cost So the minting fees and gas fees, basically the minting fees does not go to the platform. It's basically a cost that the computer, that the whole setup, the system that is running, that is the cost that the system will get for being able to provide you that services, not the platform.
Exactly.
Recently the cost of minting per piece has been on Foundation for $24 to $30, which is not bad at all, considering it was $300 3 months back.
Crazy.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then there's a last fees called, once you get a bid and once everything, once that bid duration ends, then there's the last fees involved that is called settle auction. Even you have to settle the auction. That kind of depends whether the collector pays or you pay. That is kind of a mutual understanding. But these are the costs that are involved in minting an NFT.
Okay. Interesting. Now we've talked about the selling the artworks. Now let's say I am not on any platforms as of now. I've been gathering a lot of knowledge. I know a lot of things about NFTs, but I haven't actually made the move to actually be on the platform. Now somebody like me, or somebody is an artist who wants to sell their NFTs, very beginning phase. How do you sell? See, you have minted, okay, it's out there now. Nobody knows you there on the platform. So how do you sell? How did you go about that process?
So again, that where the community word comes into play, the NFT community. So during the first 6 months of my NFT journey, I started around July. I had 3 sales for first 6 months, and those were based from my Instagram marketing. And I was really struggling. And I spoke to a friend of mine. She said, you need to be on Twitter. Okay, the Twitter for NFT world is your place to be at. So the idea for me, rather than, I would suggest if somebody wants to start in selling NFTs, I would say don't start by selling NFTs. Start by building your brand, by building your audience in the NFT space, in the Twitter space. Have 200 or 300 followers. And how that happens is you start engaging with the people who are already into the NFT space. You reshare their work, you appreciate their work. And if you see the Twitter NFT space, it is filled with that. Everybody is so supportive. And if you come and talk to people, if you have any questions about it, and you'll get people usually follow you back if your work is good and if you're kind enough and all that. So once you have during this time, you can always talk about yourself. This is what I do, and this is the kind of work I post once in a while. It's not all about you at the end of the day, but that is how you start building a brand. And so once you realize you have enough eyes and that people like your work, then you can say, what, I'm coming up with my own NFT collection, or I'm coming up to drop my first NFT piece, please do check it out, stuff like that. So once you have that eyes right, then it becomes much easier to sell. And that is how I things started kicking off for me. That was back in December end, when I started being active on Twitter, talking about my work, talking to people who are in the NFT space, talking about NFTs, just engaging with people. There's a part of Twitter that earlier Twitter used to be, in my head, was it's filled with trolls, it's full with negativity. Then there is this NFT space, which is a different world of Twitter, or a parallel Twitter is happening. That is it. And it's really friendly, and you start building a brand. That is where whole idea I understood that it's important to build a brand. How you speak on the space, you have a language, people connect with you. And then of course, when the collectors who are also there, once you start engaging with them, you get into the eyes of those collectors. So they also keep when are you going to mint it? Sometimes they would talk to you, or sometimes you tweet this is the day I'm going to mint it. And if the collector is interested and he's been watching your work throughout the space, he will be bid on it. He would go and buy that work.
That's more of, I think it also comes down to networking. It's all about networking.
It's all about networking in this thing. It is. Like also like another thing is like when you're about, so like a lot of people, like, even I do it, you know, rather than going straight away ki my piece is here, you start building that little bit of curiosity, showing a little bit of work in progress, you know, hey, this is my next piece, I'm working on this, and so that also engages people, you know, like you get like somebody's interested in it from start, you know, it gets that curiosity, oh, it looks interesting, what it could be, and then you tell them that this is the day and time I'm minting, and like most of the pieces do work, like do sell like that.
Two things I want to focus on now, because you've explained it beautifully, how you know one can start and start selling, or at least you know how to approach this whole NFT thing. Two things that I want to talk about are one, the pricing of your artwork or your piece, your NFT. How do you go about that? How do you price your NFT?
That's again a bit tricky. That's also a bit of personal question, personal decision how someone sees it. But again, like you know, any business you have to start low. You see you come onto the platform and you see work which may not be better than yours. I don't want to disrespect anybody's work, but it's getting sold for crazy amount. Okay, and then you're like, okay, ये इतने में गया, तो मैं भी I'll set my price that high. But what you have to understand is that person who's selling it that high price has been in the space, has a brand value. He's an established artist, so that it's not just about the art that the collector is picking, it's the brand name that the collector is picking. So then you start at the lowest, you know, like how much is like, you know, like suppose I've spent this number of hours, and if I was supposed to sell it in the real world or something, how much would I charge? So you kind of start saying, okay, this is the minimum that I can afford. Okay, isse kam to I feel like, you know, I cannot afford it. Keep it that. And even if the first few pieces it's like I'm thinking like going at a little bit of loss, not loss, but it's like, you know, this is like na to main waise kama leta, but like if you're thinking like, but start with that, you know, once your page says ki, you know, 5 NFTs sold, then gradually you start raising the price. So I think so, yeah. So like I started minting, like in terms of ETH, I started minting at 0.1 ETH. So not minting, but I started charging my pieces at 0.1 ETH in the Opensea platform. But again, it also depends. Like right now, like I said, Opensea has like your cost of investment apart from that initial one-time payment. Cost of minting fees is 0. So then you can also think it, okay, like even if I don't make crazy amount of money, I'm not really spending a lot in it. Good. So like I have to be like a little bit thankful to my parents also, because I'm in a situation where I can be, you know, where I've left my job and I'm taking a big risk in the NFT space. And like I want to say like my parents have been very supportive in that case. You know, I do not have to worry about bills and stuff like that. Might not be the case for everyone. So that's why. So in that case, again, for me, it's not been that volatile, because volatile is where for people who are investing it as a trading sort of place, you know, where they're putting a lot of money and they're expecting a lot of return, then their chances of getting into loss are higher. Here I'm trying to put my work and get the money out of it. That way it's not been that volatile. It's not volatile for artists as such. Again, it's volatile if I don't take that, liquidate that money, and that if tomorrow, just in case, like I hope it doesn't happen, but if the market crashes, then it becomes a bit risky. So far there has been a dip in the market during the earlier months of January, February, but it's getting positive. It has not been really bad kind of.
Cool. So I'm sorry, I told you 2 points, but yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
So I think I'm gonna slide in another point that I want to ask.
Sure. Because, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So because I've been taking notes, I have this habit of taking notes. So I think about collectors' perspective. I want to know what collectors are looking at. You know, when they like, one is like you mentioned, the branding and the. You know, your personal brand, you as an artist, your work, of course, has to be good. Is there anything else that they look at when, you know, they want to buy a piece of art, you know, buy an NFT?
Right. I think I was fortunate enough to meet one of my collectors recently in Delhi. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so I spoke to him, I was like, so like, does me being on Twitter and like being every day in community talking to people, how much does it make a difference to you? He said again, it's very subjective. For me, it's like मुझे art पसंद आया, I'll buy it, then I'll see what kind of work that person does. But he said like one thing is for me is important, that for how long that person has been doing designing, not as an NFT artist, but how long has he been in the design field. So it's not somebody who just became a designer to sell NFTs, right? That was one perspective. Then there's another collector. So like it's kind of a mentor, because I've been following his work and I've been speaking to him through Clubhouse and everything. Melvin, he's like, we had a word with him. I had a word with him, and he's like, when the first time he bought my piece, he said one thing, I've been following your work for a really long time. I just knew that you will reach a better level. I was waiting for you to reach that level. Then I was going to buy your work. So that's kind of a game. I don't know what. It's kind of faith. It's like, I'm testing that person. When he reaches that level, then I'll buy it. So again, it's very subjective from collectors to collectors. So that way. And then there are also one collector. It's like one type of collector that is there to just flip. Flip is like, if so once it happens was Opensea retweeted my work. Opensea, the platform, they retweeted my work, and then suddenly one piece of that got sold, and the collector was anonymous. So these are the kind of collectors who kind of buy it, expecting it to resell it very quickly at a very high price. So for them, it's more about making money out of it.
Right. Interesting. Now comes the question where the moment you say NFT, there are many 3D pieces out there. When compared to 2D pieces, they're very less in number, at least what I have seen.
I actually think that's a misconception. I know, because we also spoke to a lot of people. A lot of people think NFT means 3D. NFT means motion design.
Right.
It's absolutely, if you, like I said, once you enter the community, right, once you see on Twitter, so much of brilliant 2D artists are there. So many, like, even if you, should I name a few?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm so many of them. Like there's a guy called Kretan. There's a person called Ganesh. There's Amulya. There's Vanora Van Godoodle. There's Yashika Kalra. These all are like 2D and brilliant 2D artists. And I'm like, I'm sorry if someone's name I'm missing. Like there's so many of them. And these are Indian artists that I'm telling you about.
Right.
And keep share like this, like so much of 2D artwork. And I was like, I realized that Instagram used to share so many stupid reels with me. I was like, why did you share so many good work with me? And there's so many brilliant 2D artists. 3D is there. Foundation has a lot of 3D work. Foundation kind of inclines towards more of the 3D work. But on OpenSea and WazirX, there's a crazy number of 2D artists and top class 2D artists.
Cool. So, no, I asked this because I was just discussing about NFTs with fairly new artist, I would say. And that person was asking me if, is it only 3D that sells? Right? Yeah. So that was the misconception. That's why I wanted to ask you also, because, you're somebody who makes 3D.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I said I do 3D, but I've seen pieces, 2D pieces being sold for 6, 7 ETH.
Wow.
And 6, 7 ETH is
crazy.
I'm bad at math, so
it's crazy.
More than 10, 12 lakhs.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's a big misconception about 2D. If you're about 3D, if you believe in your art, I think, and if of course, like you say, if you have that marketing skill to sell your thing, if you're good at it and if you know how to sell it, you can sell anything.
Yeah, right. Perfect. I think we've covered the NFT quite a bit, but anything that you felt that, okay, I messed up this phase of it or this part of it while you were, becoming an NFT artist, in the process of becoming an NFT artist. If you had, I'm sure we all make mistakes and we learn from those mistakes. Right. So I want you to highlight a few mistakes that you've made and that you've learned, so that the person who is just getting into it, he can learn from it too.
True. There are two, like, I think I made a couple of mistakes, not just a few.
Okay.
But two major mistakes would be, like I told you, like I told you, like the first 6 months when I did not make like many sales. Main thing was I was only marketing on Instagram. Instagram is not the place for NFTs. It's a place where you put your work together. That's it. You need to be on Twitter, and I figured it out really, really late. Not that late, luckily, but a bit late. Second was, of course, to not venture into Opensea initially. I was under the impression, I heard it on a YouTube video, that Opensea is again, like I said, it's a multiple. So many people are there that your artwork gets lost. But like if you balance it, so I did not venture into Opensea thinking कि यहाँ तो मेरा नहीं बिकेगा, because I have no what do you say, social media presence. I do not have big numbers. Yeah, that's another point. Like I was also under the misconception that your social media Instagram followers numbers matter a lot. It does not matter. Like I've seen artists who have 600, 700 followers who are selling good work, like brilliant work, and like through Twitter.
Cool. I think that's an important thing to underline, because that's everywhere. People do think that the following count definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter. You say
it does not matter. Like, of course, like if you already. So how it matters is like. How it matters is like if a very established artist who has 600k or 60k followers, okay, for him it will be easier to sell. He would not have to market himself that much. It's like मैं गा रहा हूँ, and those number of followers who especially collectors who follow his work or her work would immediately buy. That's the brand name, to खरीदना है.
Yeah.
But a person who does not have that followership should not worry about that कि मेरा नहीं बिकेगा. That is not the case. If you start talking to people in the community, if you start engaging yourself, you start selling, putting up good work out there, it's not a difficult job. It's not an impossible job. It's a hard-working job.
Cool.
But like hard work is required everywhere. So,
yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, today, if you don't, if you want to just sit and say that, okay, I want this to happen and don't do nothing, then it's not going to help,
I think that's always been the case. You have to make steps to, to achieve something. बैठे बिठाए बहुत कम लोग होते हैं जिनको बैठे बिठाए मिल जाता है सब कुछ.
Yeah, वो तो. Yeah, that's
but then also
different topic altogether.
Different topic. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think but I think I would also give one suggestion if somebody wants to get into NFT space. I think it's a human nature, when you're putting your work, it's not getting sold, but you see so many people selling it. Mentally, it can be really, really tough, where am I lacking? But I've realized that I think it's just that matter of getting that right getting into the eyes of the right collector. And I think the space is eventually I think even what I've seen, the good part is a lot of collectors are there. There's a term called collector who is just a collector, who is not a designer. But the brilliant aspect of NFT space is people so many artists who have had the success, who've earned money out of it, they invest back in younger artists,
Oh, wow.
So there's a person, they invested, even I have made not me, I won't talk about me, but I've seen a lot of art, designers who who make a good sale, then they set a percentage amount, I'll invest back in the community. So that is a very good factor about the NFT space. So if you're a young artist, you're worried कि मेरा सामान नहीं लेगा कोई, और if you start seeing a lot of people making sale, don't be disheartened, but be mentally ready for that phase, because there's going to be a phase where it's going to be difficult. Initial phase is going to be very tough when you're building that brand, but once you start getting recognized in the community, then it's a much better and a lighter job.
So if I have to ask you, if you're comfortable sharing, what was the let's say the most expensive NFT that you've sold till date?
So the best part about NFTs is I don't have to hide it. If you open my profile, anybody in the world can see it. Okay. Right. So far, my highest pieces have been 0.2.
0.2 ETH.
0.2 ETH. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a collection on Opensea called Pause. So that did really well for me. Like I started that was like, you know, where I started getting recognition. That was, before that I was hardly able to. That also gave me a little bit of my own brand style. I was initially, you know, wavering a lot. I was trying to figure out which is my area. Like I said, like we are curious people. We want to learn everything. मुझे वो भी बनाना है, मुझे ये भी बनाना है. But I think it's important that I've also, like, through NFT space, I've learned that it's good to know how you design everything, but it's good to have a brand identity. You know, कि I look at a profile and I think, oh, ये Sanjay, without even looking at the name, I'll be like, अच्छा ये तो संजय ने बनाया हुआ है. You know, that way.
Yeah.
So that is another like point that I think I would like to mention. It's good to have brand identity.
Cool. I think it's a very informative discussion that we've had today. And before we conclude this discussion, I want to just discuss one more point here. Like you just mentioned that the collection was called Pause. Right. So it had a concept behind it. The collection had a concept behind it. So how important is it for artists to have a concept behind their collection?
I think especially if you're doing a collection that is like a 10 pieces of design, or any number of pieces of design based on a simple theme and thing, then it works a bit more, because, you know, like, because like once that collection gets picked up, you know, like first 5 pieces picked up, then you start to see, okay, then the collector would be like, okay, what next theme are you going to do, you know, that way. But like I've also seen certain 1x1 pieces, you know, like one-on-one art is like where every art has a different concept in it together. But again, like your concept or your theme might be different, but again, that brand identity has to be that the style of art should remain similar.
Cool. Yeah. Has a lot to do with developing your style also while you're getting into the NFT space.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I think you start learning about, like, I've spoken to a few designers and I'm like, we should get onto the NFT space. You know, they're like, you're researching, learning. I was like, the amount of learning you do while you're in the space is going to be completely different that you do while sitting outside. And not just like in learning about the NFT space, you learn a lot about your own art, you know, like you start seeing how can I improve. You start like, again, like when you see you're not selling yourself, then there are two ways. Either you step back or you realize ki, what am I missing? How can I make my art better? And I think that is something I would say fortunate about. Like the first 6 months that were difficult, that like challenged me to take my art to a different level. Like, you know what, I realized I want to add certain things, so I learned those things.
Cool. So, it's been a lovely discussion. So, before we end the discussion today, for this episode, I want to ask, what do you have planned for the immediate future? Like, you know, any important, interesting projects or crazy projects that you're excited about. If you want to talk about that, or if you can talk about that will be great.
Sure. So the Pause series that I've told you about already has 8 pieces. So I plan to do 10 pieces, 2 of them that I need to finish. That would be the end of that series. Then I also do personalized commissioned 3D like profile pictures, you know, like my avatar on Instagram. So I've been commissioned for 1 or 2 pieces as of now. I want to explore it. Like hopefully I get that popularity that I get more commissioned pieces. That is one aspect of my like work that would be there. Then I want to do more of 1x1s that are concept based pieces. This is the immediate plan, you know, that like I'm exploring this, I'm learning, I'm growing as an art director in this space. So right now that is the plan, to keep focusing on my next coming NFT pieces. That is the immediate plan as of right now.
Cool, sounds very interesting. And I think a year before, like let's say 2020 or 21, even 21 summer, let's go back to summer. If anybody had said, I want a custom avatar for my, display picture, I wouldn't even believe that, okay, that could be something that can fetch me money, So I think the NFT has done a lot of things that work for designers, even for people in the transportation design industry or product design industry, people who are good with 3D softwares and all of these things. They're now so happy and so excited about this whole NFT space because they can use their skills to make things that can
True.
actually sell, and that can fetch them money.
True. Like I was thinking about this the other day, like we have been in the design space for so many years, but again, this is my personal observation. I don't know if you relate to it or other designers relate to it. When you're working for a client or an agency, the output that you put, like the end result that you do, is way different than you had imagined it. Like it has been
Yes.
butchered by the client so many times.
Yes.
So you don't feel like it's your work.
Yeah.
Here I think apart from the financial benefits and whatnot, the best thing that NFT has done, at least I feel, is like I am my own boss. I am creating an art that
Yes.
from scratch to end is my piece,
Yes.
and like I'm showing it to the world. Hopefully someone loves it and ends up buying it. But that the freedom as a child, that when you were a kid, you were just painting, you have no restrictions, jo marji color use karo, do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
That freedom, to have that freedom is like, especially in a country like India where you know how designing is viewed, how art is viewed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's been an incredible conversation, Vipul, and I've really enjoyed this. I am definitely going to get you back on the podcast sometime very soon, because this space is continuously evolving and there are many new things that are coming up. So and we'll delve deeper into NFT space even more in the next episode. But to start with this, I'm really glad that you could share the basic stuff about NFTs and how to become an NFT artist, and about the platforms and everything. Thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, it's been fun, Sanjay. I'm so glad we did this. Like, I was still looking forward to this. So yeah, I was absolutely had an amazing time over here. Looking forward to come back.
Thank you.